You're about to unlock something most men will never understand. A psychological pattern so predictable, so brutally consistent, that once you see it, you'll wonder how you missed it your entire life. There's a moment that happens in almost every interaction you've ever had with a woman you were genuinely interested in. Everything's going smoothly, she's laughing at your jokes, texting back quickly, maybe even initiating plans. And then you make one fatal error. You let her know you actually like her. Not with words necessarily, but with your energy, your availability, your sudden investment. And just like that, as if you flipped some invisible switch, she starts pulling away. The texts get shorter, the plans get vaguer, the warmth evaporates. You're left sitting there wondering what the hell you did wrong, replaying every conversation, analyzing every interaction like a detective at a crime scene. Here's the truth. You didn't do anything wrong in the way you think. You triggered something far more primal than logic or reason. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to avoid this trap, why it happens with such disturbing consistency, and how to completely flip the script so that your interest actually makes her chase harder instead of pulling away. Let me take you inside a scene that's playing out right now in 1,000 different cities. There's a guy, let's call him Marcus, sitting in his apartment, staring at his phone. 3 days ago, he had an incredible date with a woman named Sarah. They talked for hours, the conversation flowed effortlessly, and when they said goodbye, she touched his arm and said she'd love to see him again. Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in months, genuine excitement, real possibility. So he did what seemed natural. He texted her the next morning saying he had an amazing time. He sent a funny meme that afternoon related to their conversation. When she responded, shorter than usual, but still friendly, he suggested another date for that weekend. Her reply came 6 hours later. "I'm pretty busy this week, but maybe next week." Marcus, feeling the ground shifting beneath him, tried to play it cool. "No problem, just let me know." But internally, he's spiraling. He's refreshing his phone every 10 minutes. He's crafting and deleting messages. He's trying to figure out what changed between the warmth of Tuesday night and the coldness of Thursday afternoon. What Marcus doesn't realize is that nothing external changed. Sarah didn't meet someone else. She didn't suddenly discover a deal-breaking flaw. What changed was the energy dynamic. And it happened the second Marcus revealed through his behavior that he was now invested in an outcome. Here's what actually happens in Sarah's mind, even though she'd never articulated this way. When Marcus showed up to that first date, he was relaxed, present, genuinely enjoying himself without needing anything from her. That created a specific feeling in her nervous system, the feeling of being in the presence of a man who is complete without her, who has options, who is choosing to spend time with her but doesn't need her validation to feel valuable. This is the energy that creates attraction, the energy that makes a woman think about you when you're not around. But the moment Marcus started chasing, sending multiple messages, trying to lock down the next date immediately, his energy subtly shifted from "I'm enjoying this" to "I need this to go somewhere." Sarah's nervous system registered a completely different signal. Suddenly, she's not with a man who has options. She's with a man who's worried about losing her. She's not with someone choosing her from a position of abundance. She's with someone grasping from a position of scarcity. And here's the brutal part. This isn't a conscious decision she's making. She's not sitting there thinking, "Oh, Marcus likes me now, better pull away." She just notices that the feeling she had on Tuesday is gone, replaced by something that feels like pressure, like obligation, like someone wanting something from her. So she does what her instincts tell her to do. She creates space.
Here's what makes this even more painful. The advice you've probably received has only made this worse. Someone told you to show her you care. Someone said, make your intentions clear. Someone insisted that honesty and communication are key. And all of that sounds reasonable, mature even. So you did exactly that. You showed interest, you are available, you communicated that you liked spending time with her, and it backfired spectacularly. Now you're confused, maybe even resentful, because you followed the rules and got punished for it. But those rules were written for a game that doesn't exist. The people giving that advice are operating from how relationships should work in some idealized world, not how attraction actually functions in the messy reality of human psychology. When a woman says she wants a man who's open about his feelings, she means after she's already deeply attracted to him, after she's already invested, after she's already chasing. What she's describing is the maintenance phase of a relationship, not the attraction phase. And if you bring maintenance phase behavior into the attraction phase, you short-circuit the entire process. Think about the last time you were genuinely pursuing a goal that excited you. Maybe it was a career move, a fitness transformation, a creative project. Remember how it felt when you were in that zone, completely absorbed in the process, not worried about the outcome, but fully engaged in the work itself? You had a certain energy, a certain presence. You weren't needy. You weren't checking constantly to see if it was working. You were just locked in, moving forward with purpose. Now, think about how different that feels from the energy you bring when you're worried about a woman pulling away. One energy is magnetic, the other is repelling. One makes people want to be part of what you're building, the other makes them want to escape the pressure. The irony is that the version of you she met on that first date, the one who wasn't yet invested, who was just showing up and enjoying himself, that guy was naturally displaying the energy that creates attraction. But the moment you started caring about the outcome, you lost access to that energy. You can't fake it because she can feel the difference between a man who genuinely doesn't need her validation and a man who's pretending not to need it while secretly obsessing over every text. Let me give you the framework that explains why this happens with such mathematical precision. There are two fundamental forces at play in every interaction between a masculine and feminine energy: pursuit and retreat. These aren't gender-specific, they're polarity-specific. In the attraction phase, one energy moves forward, while the other creates space for that movement. When you first met Sarah, she was giving you signals, creating openings, showing interest, and you were responding with your own forward movement, but from a grounded place. The dance was balanced. But the second your energy shifted from grounded pursuit to anxious chasing, the polarity collapsed. You started doing her job, pursuing too hard, filling all the space, eliminating the tension. And when you eliminate tension, you eliminate the electrical charge that makes someone feel pulled toward you. She started pulling away not because she lost interest, but because that's the only way to restore the balance. Her nervous system is trying to recreate the dynamic that felt good, but she can only do that by creating distance to compensate for your over-pursuit. Now, here's where it gets really uncomfortable, because I'm about to tell you something that will probably piss you off. She's not wrong for pulling away. She's not playing games, she's not being manipulative or testing you, or any of the other stories men tell themselves to avoid facing the real issue. She's responding authentically to a genuine shift in your energy, and her response is actually giving you valuable information. When you started chasing, you revealed something about your internal state, that your sense of value and emotional stability are now tied to her response. That's not attractive because it's not sustainable. A woman doesn't want to be responsible for regulating your emotional state. She doesn't want to be the source of your confidence or the reason you feel good about yourself. That's an impossible burden, and her instincts are telling her to run from it. What she wants is to be with someone who is already complete, already abundant, already moving through life with purpose, and she gets to be a part of that journey, not the destination of it. The moment you made her the destination, you handed her a responsibility she never asked for and doesn't want. So what do you do when you've already triggered this pattern? When you can feel her pulling away and every instinct in your body is screaming at you to chase harder, to fix it, to explain yourself, to win her back? You do the most counterintuitive thing possible. You let her go. Not as a strategy or a tactic or some reverse psychology manipulation. You genuinely release your attachment to the outcome. You stop texting, you stop checking her social media, you stop mentally rehearsing conversations you'll have when she comes around. You redirect all that energy that was flowing toward her back into yourself, your mission, your life. And this is where most men completely misunderstand what's happening. They think this is about playing hard to get or making her jealous or some other game. It's not. It's about genuinely reclaiming your energy and reinvesting it in becoming the man who doesn't need her validation to feel valuable. Because here's the psychological mechanism at work. When you stop chasing and truly detach from the outcome, one of two things happens. Either she senses the shift in your energy and becomes curious again about why you're no longer pursuing, which often reignites her interest, or she doesn't, in which case you've just saved yourself months or years of chasing someone who was never going to be genuinely attracted to the real you anyway.
But let's go deeper into what's actually happening in those moments when you feel yourself starting to get invested. There's a specific sequence of thoughts that runs through your mind, and if you can catch it early, you can short-circuit the entire destructive pattern. It starts with a single thought. This one is different. You've been on other dates, talked to other women, but something about Sarah feels special. Maybe it's the way she laughed at that stupid joke. Maybe it's how the conversation flowed without any of those awkward silences. Maybe it's just been a while since you felt this kind of chemistry. Whatever the trigger, your brain latches onto it and starts building a narrative. This could be something real. This could be the relationship I've been looking for. This could be the one that finally works out. And with each thought, you're adding weight to something that was supposed to stay light. You're taking a simple, enjoyable interaction and loading it with the pressure of all your hopes and previous disappointments. By the time you send that second text or suggest that next date, you're not just asking to see her again, you're unconsciously asking her to validate an entire fantasy future you've constructed in your head. She can feel that weight, even if you think you're playing it cool. The brutal truth is that neediness isn't about how many times you text or whether you wait 3 days to call. Neediness is an energy signature that broadcasts, "My emotional state depends on your response." You can send one text and be needy. You can send 10 texts and not be needy. The difference is entirely internal. When Marcus sent that morning after text to Sarah, the words themselves were fine. "Had a great time last night" is harmless enough. But the energy behind it was screaming something else entirely. "Please confirm that what I felt was real. Please reassure me that you're still interested. Please don't disappear like the others." Sarah's nervous system picked up on that frequency before her conscious mind could process the words. And that's when the retreat began. Because what she signed up for on Tuesday was spending time with a man who seemed complete, confident, moving through the world with purpose. What she encountered on Wednesday was a man who suddenly needed something from her, whose emotional equilibrium had shifted from internal to external, who was now looking to her to provide something he should be providing for himself. Here's what most men don't realize. The version of you that attracted her in the first place wasn't better looking or more successful or more charming than the version of you that's texting her now. The only difference was your relationship to outcome. When you met her, you had no investment in where it would go. You were present, engaged, genuinely enjoying the moment without needing it to become something more. That's the secret ingredient that no one talks about, the ability to be fully present with someone without needing anything from them. It's not aloofness. It's not disinterest. It's genuine abundance mentality made flesh. You're enjoying the conversation because the conversation itself is enough. You're appreciating her company because her company in this moment is enough. You're not 3 steps ahead wondering if this will lead to a relationship, if she'll meet your family, if this is finally the one. You're just here, now, with no agenda beyond the present moment. That energy is intoxicating because it's so rare. Most people are constantly living in the future, in possibility, in what might happen. When someone shows up fully in the now, it creates a kind of gravitational pull. But the moment you start wanting something from the interaction, validation, confirmation, a relationship, sex, anything, you leave the present moment and enter the realm of transaction. Now you're no longer enjoying her company for its own sake. You're investing in her, hoping for a specific return. And she can feel the difference immediately. It's like the shift from dancing with someone who's moving to the music for the pure joy of it versus dancing with someone who's performing, trying to impress, watching themselves in the mirror to see if they look good. One is alive, the other is dead. One draws you in, the other pushes you away. When Marcus started planning the next date before the first one was even fully digested, he left the realm of genuine connection and entered the realm of strategy. He was no longer asking, would it be fun to see her again? He was asking, how do I lock this down? How do I make sure she doesn't slip away? And that shift from enjoyment to strategy is what killed the attraction. So here's the mind hack that changes everything, but it requires you to be ruthlessly honest with yourself. Before you send that text, before you suggest that plan, before you make any move toward her, you have to ask yourself one question. Am I doing this because it genuinely feels good to me? Or am I doing this because I'm trying to manage her perception of me? If there's even a hint of the second motivation, don't do it. Not as a strategy, as a practice of self-respect. Every time you act from a place of trying to control how she sees you, you're abandoning yourself. You're betraying the man you actually are in favor of some performance you think will be more attractive. And the truly insane part is that the performance is always less attractive than the real you, because the performance is coming from fear and the real you comes from presence. Women aren't stupid. They've been managing social dynamics and reading emotional subtext since they were children. They can sense when you're performing versus when you're being. And being will always win, even if the being is awkward or imperfect, because at least it's real. This means you have to develop the capacity to enjoy interactions without attachment to outcome. And I know what you're thinking. But I want an outcome. I want a relationship. I'm not just trying to have philosophical conversations with women. I'm trying to build something. I get it. But here's the paradox. The only way to consistently get the outcome you want is to stop being attached to it. When you're attached to an outcome, you're operating from scarcity, from the belief that if this doesn't work out, you won't get another chance. That scarcity energy makes you grasp, control, manipulate, strategize. It makes you into someone you're not. But when you're genuinely abundant, when you believe at a cellular level that if this woman isn't the right fit, there will be others, you show up completely differently. You're relaxed, you're yourself, you're willing to risk her not liking the real you because you'd rather know now than waste time pretending to be someone else. And the ironic part is that the energy of, I'm me, take it or leave it, is what creates genuine attraction because it signals that you have options, that you're not desperate, that you value yourself enough to not compromise who you are for anyone's approval.
Let me show you what this looks like in practice, because the gap between understanding this intellectually and actually embodying it is where most men get stuck. You're on that second date with Sarah or someone like her, and things are going well. There's a moment where she mentions she's going to be busy next week with work stuff. Your immediate internal reaction is panic. She's creating distance, she's losing interest. I need to lock down another date right now before the window closes. That panic is the signal. That's the exact moment where you need to pause and do the opposite of what your scarcity-wired brain is telling you to do. Instead of trying to nail down plans immediately, instead of asking when she'll be free, instead of filling the silence with assurances that you're flexible and can work around her schedule, you just let it breathe. You say something like, "That's cool, hope the project goes well." And you mean it. You're not playing a game. You're not strategically creating distance. You're genuinely okay with not seeing her next week because your life isn't on hold waiting for her. You have your own work, your own friends, your own pursuits that will fill that time. And, more importantly, you trust that if she's actually interested, she'll reach out when she has space. If she doesn't, then you have your answer without having to chase or convince or perform. This is where most men completely sabotage themselves because they confuse showing interest with showing need. You think that if you're not actively pursuing, you're being passive or uninterested, but there's a massive difference between pursuing from a grounded place and chasing from a desperate place. Pursuing from a grounded place looks like you enjoyed the first date, you reach out to suggest a second one, she's interested, and it happens. Clean, simple, no games. Chasing from a desperate place looks like you enjoyed the first date, you text her the next morning, you send a meme in the afternoon, you check to see if she's viewed your Instagram story, you suggest plans, and when she's vague, you suggest alternative plans. You interpret every delay in her response as a crisis that needs to be managed. See the difference? One is a man extending an invitation that she's free to accept or decline. The other is a man who's made her response the center of his emotional world. One is attractive. The other is suffocating. The hardest part about this is that when you're in the middle of it, when you're feeling that pull to check your phone again or craft another message or figure out what went wrong, you genuinely believe you're just being interested and engaged. Your brain is telling you that if you just say the right thing, do the right thing, show her that you're different from other guys, she'll come back around. But you're not operating from interest. You're operating from fear. Fear that if you don't do something right now, you'll lose your chance. Fear that she's slipping away and you're powerless to stop it. Fear that you'll be alone again, that you missed your window, that you're not good enough to keep her attention. And all of that fear is creating a kind of desperation that broadcasts on a frequency she can't help but receive. The more you chase, the faster she runs, not because she's cruel or playing games, but because her nervous system is responding to the energy of scarcity the same way your nervous system responds when someone gets too clingy too fast, by wanting to create space. Now, let's talk about what abundance actually means, because this isn't about pretending you don't care or acting like you have a lineup of other women or any of that fake alpha bullshit. Real abundance is an internal state that comes from understanding one simple truth. Your value doesn't change based on whether any particular woman is interested in you. You're either a high-value man or you're not, and her response to you is simply information about compatibility, not a referendum on your worth. When you actually internalize this, not just intellectually, but at a bone-deep level, you stop needing her validation because you're already validated from within. You stop analyzing her texts for hidden meanings because you trust that if she's interested, she'll make it clear. And if she's not, that's fine because you're building a life you love with or without her. This doesn't mean you don't care about relationships or don't want connection. It means you've stopped outsourcing your sense of self-worth to other people's responses. Here's the exercise that will reveal where you actually are on the spectrum. Imagine right now that Sarah never texts you back. Not because something happened, not because there's another guy, just because she decided it's not the right fit. How does that land in your body? If your immediate response is panic, spiraling thoughts, or a desperate need to fix it, you're still operating from scarcity. If your response is disappointment, but fundamental okayness, like, that would have been cool, but I'm good either way, then you're operating from abundance. Most men lie to themselves about this. They say they're abundant while their behavior screams scarcity. They claim they're just being interested while their energy reeks of need. The body doesn't lie. Your nervous system knows the truth even when your mind is telling you comfortable stories. And her nervous system is reading your nervous system far more accurately than she's reading your words. What you need to understand is that this isn't about becoming cold or distant or unavailable. It's about becoming genuinely full. A man who is truly abundant with his own life, who has a mission he's obsessed with, friendships that fulfill him, hobbies that challenge him, a purpose that drives him. That man doesn't need any woman to complete him. He wants connection, sure. He appreciates feminine energy and enjoys dating and is open to a relationship, but he doesn't need it in order to feel like his life has meaning. And that's the energy that makes women chase. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you're genuinely hard to get. Your attention is valuable because you're not giving it away to anyone who shows you the slightest bit of interest. Your time is precious because you're actually doing things with it that matter to you. Your energy is magnetic because it's not being drained by constantly worrying about what some woman thinks of you.
This is why the solution to "she pulled away" is never about what to text her or how long to wait or what strategy to deploy. The solution is always about returning to yourself, going back to the gym with intensity, reconnecting with the friends you've been flaking on, diving deeper into your work, picking up that project you abandoned, building something that matters to you.
Because when you're genuinely absorbed and becoming the best version of yourself, something shifts in your energy that's impossible to fake. You stop checking your phone every 5 minutes because you're actually engaged with what's in front of you. You stop analyzing her behavior because you're too busy analyzing your own performance, your own progress, your own growth. And paradoxically, that's often when she circles back. Not always. Sometimes she's genuinely not the right fit and she stays gone, but often enough that you'll notice the pattern. The moment you stop chasing is the moment she becomes curious again about why you're not chasing. But even if she doesn't come back, you win, because you've reclaimed your life. You stop being the guy who abandons himself the second a woman shows interest. You stop being the guy whose emotional state is determined by someone else's texting patterns. You stop being the guy who gives away his power to anyone with a pretty smile and good conversation. And that transformation from a man who needs female validation to a man who is complete without it, that's the only transformation that actually matters. Everything else is just symptoms. The texting behavior, the neediness, the anxiety, the overthinking, all of it stems from the same root cause. You don't actually believe you're valuable enough. So you're constantly seeking external confirmation. You're constantly trying to prove your worth. You're constantly afraid that if you don't do or say the right thing, you'll lose your chance with this person who might finally make you feel like you're enough. But here's the truth that no one wants to hear. She can't make you enough. No woman can. You already are enough, or you're not. And that determination happens entirely independent of anyone else's opinion. When you meet a woman who's genuinely attracted to you, it's not because you convinced her or earned it or performed correctly. It's because something about your energy resonates with something in her, and that resonance either exists or it doesn't. You can't negotiate genuine attraction. You can't logic someone into wanting you. You can't be so perfect in your behavior that they have no choice but to feel pulled toward you. Attraction is not a rational process. It's a felt sense that happens in the body before the mind can make sense of it. And the only thing you can control is whether you're showing up as your authentic self or as some performed version you think will be more acceptable. The authentic self might not be for everyone, but the people it is for will feel it immediately. The performed self isn't for anyone because it's not real, and on some level, everyone can sense the inauthenticity, even if they can't name it. So let's bring this full circle to that moment when you first notice her pulling away. You feel the shift in her energy. The responses get shorter, the enthusiasm dims, the warmth evaporates. You have two choices in that moment. Choice one, panic and chase. Send more text, try to recapture whatever you had, analyze what you did wrong, attempt to fix it with more attention, more effort, more performance. This is the choice most men make, and it virtually never works because you're not addressing the actual problem. You're just adding more of the energy that caused the problem. In the first place, she pulled away because your energy got needy, and your response to her pulling away is to get even more needy. You're confirming her instinct that you're not the man she thought you were. Choice two, recognize what's happening, feel the discomfort of it, and choose to let go. Not to punish her or play games, but because you actually value yourself enough to not chase someone who's clearly not that interested. You redirect your energy back to your life, your mission, your growth. You remember that you were fine before you met her, and you'll be fine if this doesn't work out. You trust that the right person won't require convincing or chasing or performing. They'll just feel it the way you feel it. Most men are terrified of choice two because it feels like giving up. It feels like you're losing your chance. It feels like you're being passive when you should be fighting for what you want. But that frame is all wrong. You're not giving up. You're setting a standard. You're saying, I'm only interested in connecting with people who actually want to connect with me, not people that have to convince. You're not being passive. You're being selective. You're not losing your chance. You're either allowing space for genuine interest to develop without pressure, or you're discovering that there was never real compatibility there in the first place. Either way, you win because you're not wasting your time and energy on someone who isn't feeling it. Think about how much of your life you spent chasing people who were lukewarm about you, how much mental energy you've burned analyzing their behavior, crafting the perfect response, trying to figure out what you did wrong. What if you took all that energy and invested it in yourself instead? What if you decided right now that your attention is a gift that you only give to people who genuinely appreciate it? This is the standard that changes everything. You only pursue people who are excited about you, not people who are on the fence, not people who need convincing, not people who show occasional interest mixed with distance. People who are actually excited to hear from you, who initiate sometimes, who make it clear through their actions, not just their words, that they want to be around you. And if someone doesn't meet that standard, you don't make them wrong or hate them or become bitter. You just recognize they're not the right fit and you move on without drama. This doesn't make you an asshole or commitment phobic or avoidant. It makes you someone with healthy boundaries who understands their own value. And here's what's crazy. The moment you actually embody this standard, the moment you genuinely won't accept breadcrumbs or mixed signals or lukewarm interest, you'll notice that the quality of women who show up in your life completely changes because your energy is different. You're not broadcasting desperation anymore. You're broadcasting, I'm good with or without you. So if you want to be here fully. Otherwise, no hard feelings.
The reason this works isn't manipulation or reverse psychology. It works because it's real. You've actually shifted your internal reality from scarcity to abundance, from needing validation to being self-validated, from seeking completion in another person to being complete on your own. And that shift is tangible. People feel it when they're around you. There's a different quality to your presence when you're not trying to get something from the interaction. When Marcus finally stopped texting Sarah, stopped checking her social media, stopped mentally rehearsing what he'd say when she reached out again, when he genuinely redirected his energy back into his life, something changed in him that had nothing to do with her. He started hitting the gym consistently again. He took on that challenging project at work he'd been avoiding. He organized a weekend trip with his boys that he'd been putting off. And somewhere in the middle of all that, he realized he hadn't thought about Sarah in 3 days. Not because he was trying not to think about her, but because he was genuinely engaged with his life again. That's when she texted him. Not immediately, but a couple weeks later. Something casual, a call back to their conversation. And here's what was different. Marcus didn't feel that surge of relief or validation or, finally, she came back around. He felt nothing particularly intense, just a mild interest in responding when he had time. He wasn't mad at her. He wasn't trying to punish her with silence. He was just busy with his actual life, so he responded a few hours later with something friendly but not particularly invested. No over-explaining where he'd been, no performance of being too busy, just a natural response from a man who has things going on. And that energy, that genuine disinterest in the outcome, is what made her start pursuing. She suggested getting together. He said sure, offered a specific day. She agreed. They met up, and this time, something was different. Marcus wasn't trying to make sure she liked him. He wasn't managing her perception. He was just there, present, enjoying the conversation, but not needing it to become anything. And that's what actually created the space for something real to develop. But let's be clear about something. This isn't a strategy to get her back. If you're using detachment as a tactic while internally you're still obsessing, you've missed the entire point. The goal isn't to manipulate her into chasing you. The goal is to genuinely build a life where whether she's in it or not doesn't fundamentally change your state of being. That's freedom. That's power. That's the only thing that actually makes you attractive long-term because it's sustainable. You can fake confidence for a date or two. You can fake abundance for a few weeks, but you can't fake genuine fulfillment in your own life. Eventually the mask slips. Eventually she sees that underneath the cool exterior, you're just a guy who needs her validation to feel okay about himself. And that's when the attraction dies for good. The only way to consistently show up as an attractive, high-value man is to actually be one. And being one means doing the work on yourself, the psychological work, the emotional work, the actual building of a life you're proud of. This is where most men quit, because building yourself is hard. It's harder than learning some texting technique or dating strategy. It requires you to look at the uncomfortable truth about where you actually are in life. Maybe you're not in the shape you want to be in. Maybe you're coasting at a job that doesn't challenge you. Maybe you've isolated yourself and don't have real friendships anymore.
Maybe you've been numbing yourself with porn and video games and social media instead of actually pursuing the things that matter to you. These aren't judgments, they're just observations. But until you're willing to look at them honestly and start making different choices, you'll keep running the same pattern with women. You'll meet someone, feel that spark, get invested too quickly, start needing their validation, watch them pull away, and then either chase them into oblivion or move on to repeat the cycle with someone new. The woman changes, but the pattern doesn't, because you're still bringing the same energy to every interaction. What would happen if you spent the next 6 months completely focused on yourself? Not avoiding women or swearing off dating, but making your own development the absolute priority. You wake up and the first question isn't, "Did she text me?" but "What am I building today?" You go to the gym not to look good for women, but because you're committed to being physically excellent. You work on your career not to have something to brag about, but because you're genuinely driven to create something meaningful. You cultivate friendships not as a backup plan, but because you value male connection and camaraderie. You develop skills, read challenging books, have difficult conversations, face your fears, push your limits. And in the middle of all that, if you happen to meet a woman who's genuinely interested, great. But if not, you're still winning because you're becoming the man you're capable of being. That's the frame shift that changes everything. From "I need to find a woman to complete my life" to "I'm building an incredible life and the right woman will want to be part of it." And here's what happens when you actually do this. You stop tolerating mediocre interest. You stop wasting time with women who are lukewarm about you. You stop contorting yourself to fit what you think they want. Because you've developed something more valuable than any relationship: genuine self-respect. And self-respect is knowing that you'd rather be alone than be with someone who makes you chase, who plays games, who keeps you guessing about where you stand. It's knowing that your time and energy are finite resources that you're choosing to invest wisely. It's understanding that every hour you spend worrying about what some girl thinks of you is an hour you're not spending becoming better. And becoming better is the only thing that actually matters. Not better at getting women, better as a man. More skilled, more knowledgeable, more capable, more grounded, more purposeful. When you're obsessed with that project, when that's what drives you out of bed in the morning, women become a bonus instead of a necessity. You don't get her back by waiting. You don't get her back by playing games. You don't get her back by crafting the perfect text or following some strategic dating advice. You get her back, if she's even worth getting back, by becoming the man who doesn't need her back, by building a life so full, so purposeful, so aligned with who you actually are, that whether she's in it or not becomes almost irrelevant. That's the paradox. The moment you stop needing someone is the moment they want to be with you. Not because you're manipulating them, but because you finally become the energy they were attracted to in the first place, the energy of a complete man who's moving through the world with direction and purpose. And if she doesn't come back, even better, because now you have space for someone who actually recognizes your value without needing to be convinced of it.